Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 27 female, have always had a complicated relationship with my family. Mostly because I grew up in the shadow of my older sister, Sabrina, 29 female, the golden child. And I mean that literally. Sabrina could walk into a room and have every head turn. She inherited all of my mom's best features. Tall, slim, hourglass figure, perfect posture, effortless elegance. Think model off duty, but with a perfectly curated smile. She was always the star in every room, and my parents made sure I knew it. Me? I look like our dad. And while I love my dad, let's just say genetically blessed wasn't a phrase anyone ever used about him, or me. I've struggled with weight since I was a kid. Puberty hit, and instead of leaning out like Sabrina, I filled out. My parents put me on my first diet at 12. I was weighed weekly, bribed with clothes if I lost pounds, and shamed with silence or tight-lipped disappointment if I gained. I was enrolled in every dance class, every sport, every healthy eating program they could afford. Meanwhile, Sabrina got compliments for simply existing. When we were teens, the contrast became unbearable. Sabrina was popular, prom queen, class president, all of it. I was the other sister, the chubby one, the one teachers looked at and said, "Oh, you're Sabrina's sister?" Huh. So, yeah, my self-esteem took a nosedive and kind of stayed there. I struggled with disordered eating for years and eventually just gave up. I avoided mirrors. I wore oversized black clothes to disappear. If someone wanted a group photo, I'd make up an excuse to skip it. About a year ago, Sabrina got engaged to Nathan. He's from a very wealthy, very image-conscious family. I don't have a problem with him personally, but the whole engagement was a spectacle. The ring was massive, the parties endless, the social media posts nauseating. My parents were over the moon. They were proud, glowing, and for once, even included me, sort of. Until they didn't. About 6 months before the wedding, I was invited to talk with my parents. I say talk, but really it was an intervention. They sat me down and told me, in no uncertain terms, that I needed to do something about my appearance before the wedding. Their words, not mine. My mom said, "It's going to be a very upscale event, sweetheart. There will be a lot of important guests, and we just want everything to look polished." My dad added, "We don't want Sabrina to feel ashamed of how the family is presented." That one stung. They were polite, almost rehearsed in how they said it, but the message was clear. I wasn't good enough as I was. They even hinted that Nathan's mother had concerns about how photos would look and how it would reflect on Sabrina. I was told, again, not asked, to lose weight. Not for my health, not for myself, but for Sabrina's image. I went home that night and cried harder than I had in years. But then something weird happened. I got angry, like really angry. Not the kind of white-hot rage you feel in a moment, but that slow, simmering fire that burns quietly and steadily. I realized that I'd spent my whole life shrinking myself emotionally because I couldn't shrink physically. And for once, I wanted to take control. Not for them, but for me. So I started making changes. I didn't go on some crash diet. I found a great therapist who specialized in body image and eating disorder. I got a personal trainer. I learned how to cook in a way that felt nourishing, not punishing. I stopped weighing myself. I didn't even own a scale. But over the next 6 months, my body changed. Not just because I was moving more or eating differently, but because I was finally treating myself like I deserved respect. By the time Sabrina's wedding rolled around, I had lost about 60 pounds. But more importantly, I felt better. I held my head higher. I stopped hiding in photos. I started to like being seen. I hadn't posted much online, and my family hadn't seen me in person in months. So when I showed up at the rehearsal dinner in a fitted navy dress, with styled hair and makeup, courtesy of a friend who's a stylist, jaws literally dropped. I don't say that to brag. I say it because it was one of the few times in my life I felt seen for something other than being less than Sabrina. My mom pulled me aside and whispered, "You look amazing." My dad gave me a long hug. Even Nathan said, "Wow, you look like a whole different person." Sabrina, however, went quiet. She didn't smile. She barely looked at me. I thought maybe she was just stressed. Well, I was wrong. The wedding day arrived. I wore a dress Sabrina had picked. Pale green, floor length, very simple. But even in that, I guess I looked amazing. I was complimented non-stop. Guests who didn't recognize me kept asking who I was. One of Nathan's uncles asked if I was Sabrina's cousin. Someone even joked that the bride and I must be sisters, and then did a double take. By the end of the night, Sabrina was fuming. At the reception, she barely spoke to me. I assumed she was just overwhelmed, so I kept my distance and didn't push. But the real explosion came 2 days later. I got a call from my mom. She was furious. Apparently, Sabrina had called her sobbing, saying I had stolen her moment, that I'd upstaged her on her wedding day, that the attention that should have been hers was diverted to me. She accused me of planning the whole thing to sabotage her, and said I only lost weight so I could humiliate her in front of her new in-laws, family, and friends. She said I didn't lose weight all those years, but somehow I lost it for her wedding. I was speechless. I had done everything they asked of me. I showed up looking presentable, as they put it. I wore the dress she picked. I stayed out of the spotlight. I didn't give a speech. I didn't post photos until after she did. But none of that mattered. Suddenly, I was the villain. My dad said, "You should have known better than to wear something so flattering." My mom asked, "Couldn't you have waited to lose all the other weight until after the wedding? I wasn't expecting such drastic changes." I was stunned. Was I supposed to stay unhealthy and miserable just so I wouldn't offend my sister's ego? Since then, I've been ghosted by Sabrina. She blocked me on social media and told mutual friends that I sabotaged her wedding out of spite. My parents are cold and passive-aggressive. Every conversation is laced with tension and subtle jabs. A few relatives have reached out to say they thought I looked beautiful. So now I'm sitting here wondering, did I cross some unspoken line? I didn't try to outshine her. I didn't want attention. I just didn't want to feel like a walking embarrassment anymore. Also, my own parents demanded I lose weight for the wedding, and now apparently I lost too much. Was it wrong of me to finally choose myself? Reddit. Am I the a-hole for losing weight for my sister's wedding after my parents told me to, and now being blamed for stealing her spotlight? Not the a-hole. Let me get this straight. OP's parents body-shamed her into changing herself for a wedding, and now they're mad she succeeded. That's some Olympic-level gaslighting. OP didn't wear a white dress. She didn't grab the mic and belt out Beyoncé. OP existed in a body they finally deemed acceptable, and that was somehow offensive. The real problem here isn't OP's weight loss. It's that OP's sister and parents were never prepared to see OP as anything other than the fat one. OP changed the narrative, and they hate that. OP needs to let them sit in their discomfort. OP not the villain in this story. She just stopped playing her assigned role. And now let's hear community's opinion. This is classic golden child syndrome. Your sister was fine being pretty as long as you stayed in your lane and never posed a threat. The moment you dared to shine, even just by showing up confident and healthy, she spiraled. Honestly, that sounds like a her problem. If she needs everyone around her to feel small for her to feel beautiful, then she's not the beauty she thinks she is. Not the a-hole, OP. You didn't steal the spotlight. They just never thought you'd deserve one. Not the a-hole at all. You took care of yourself. You worked on your mental and physical health, and your family's response was to punish you for it? That's not love. That's control. It's also telling that your parents were totally fine body-shaming you for aesthetic purposes. But when those aesthetics shifted in a way they didn't expect, they flipped. Keep focusing on you. It's not your fault your sister's ego is made of glass. Not the a-hole, but I do wonder, did you not suspect this reaction might happen? I'm not saying you should have stayed heavy for the wedding, but families with deep favoritism issues are predictable. I've been the other sibling too. When you challenge the hierarchy, even unintentionally, they panic. You didn't do anything wrong, but don't expect people like this to celebrate your growth. Sometimes your glow-up becomes a mirror for everything they don't want to face. I proposed to my girlfriend of 3 years recently. My mom has never liked her, and while she doesn't do much directly to her, it is pretty clear that she doesn't like her. This has obviously impacted my relationship with my mom, but it is what it is. My mom has quite a bit of jewelry. Some of it is from an inheritance, and she has mixed feelings about it because of who gave it to her. A lot of it is from her husband. I recently had a fight with my mom because she made a comment comparing my success to my sister, and totally ignored the fact that my sister has had everything handed to her by her father. I was pissed because she was comparing my sister's luxury condo to my starter house and just acting like her husband didn't buy that condo. My mom apologized and said I was right, and she feels bad that my sister has been given everything and I haven't. She asked if there was anything I could do to help and offered to buy me a car. I said my car was fine, and if she really wants to help, she could give me a ring to propose. My mom got upset and said how could I ask her to do that? Her rings aren't for my girlfriend, and I don't understand how much it would duck her up emotionally to give one of those rings to my girlfriend, knowing the history. I dropped it. Then a couple months later I was at work. I work for her husband, and I found out that she had given a ring to my stepdad's secretary. I was hurt and confronted my mom. She said that she just wanted to give her something nice because she is poor. She isn't even poor, and she feels bad for her. My mom said it wasn't a big deal because that particular ring didn't go with her hair. She never wore it, and my sisters looked like her. I snapped at her that she could have given me that ring if no one was going to wear it, and she obviously hates my girlfriend more than I thought. I said maybe she doesn't deserve to be invited to the wedding, and she told me to stop being dramatic. I said I was done talking to her until she apologized. I know she doesn't owe anyone a ring, but she gave it to her husband's secretary over her future daughter-in-law and the future mother of her grandchildren. My stepdad called me pissed off and said my mom was crying, and I'm entitled for demanding a ring, and I should care more about my mom's mental health knowing this jewelry was left to her by an aggressor. You asked her for a ring. She said no. Then she chose to give one of her possessions away. And somehow that gives you the right to have her property? It's obviously about so much more. But for this, yes, you're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. The rings belong to your mom. She can give them to whomever she feels like giving them to. A random ring your mom is getting rid of because it doesn't match her hair doesn't even seem like a good engagement ring. There is no sentiment there. It's just a random ring you happen to get your hands on. Edit. And if the ring was from an aggressive partner, that's the wrong kind of sentiment to pass on. That seems worse than no ring at all. You're the a-hole. It's not your property and she doesn't owe it to you. She could have donated it or had it melted down and it still wouldn't be your business. Your mother's relationship sounds strained, and you and her need to figure that stuff out as your fiancé becomes part of the family dynamic. As an info, she offered to buy you a car? Why do you want some random ring from her collection, especially if it has a loaded history? Did you ask her for help to get you into getting a new ring for your fiancé? You know, something in a style your fiancé might actually like and one that doesn't have a weird history with your mom? Once again, your mom doesn't owe you a ring, new or old, but seems weird you'd want just a random ring to offer your fiancé anyway. I didn't think to ask for money for a ring, probably should have. Most of the rings are my fiancé's style. We've talked about ring styles before, and most of these are pretty classic and very much her style. My wife Taylor and I got married a little over 2 years ago. It was supposed to be a beautiful day and was something she had dreamed of her whole life. But unfortunately, during the reception, a family friend, Ken, intentionally spilled food and a drink on her dress, which obviously devastated Taylor. This was pretty early in the reception, and there was no way to get it out. So the night was ruined for her, and Taylor struggled greatly to move past this. Obviously, Ken was thrown out of the venue, but we did bring him to court for the damage. He opted to just pay without going through with the court date, and has flat out admitted he did it on purpose. His reasoning was he had a thing for my mom, was wasted, and thought that would impress her. Apparently, my mom, unbeknownst to us, was angry because Taylor told people we were engaged at my mom's milestone birthday party, and my mom told Ken that, and he got this brilliant idea to woo her. Anyway, my mom initially sided with us, but later began dating Ken and told us to get over it. I told her it was us or him, and she picked him. I lost my mom and both of my sisters over this guy, and Taylor lost out on her dream wedding. I haven't seen my mom since, but I did know through the family that she and Ken were getting married. I tried to keep this from Taylor as it would hurt her, but she found out. Recently, my cousin, Emily, came over. Emily is the only family I have left due to Ken, so I do value the relationship. Emily mentioned how she had spent the weekend in a nearby vacation town for my mom's wedding, and was just saying how much she liked the town. But Taylor snapped at her and said she didn't want to hear anything about my mom's wedding. Emily said she understood. About 20 minutes later, Taylor asked if she wanted to stay for dinner, and Emily said she couldn't as she has my mom's dogs at the moment. So obviously she is on her honeymoon. Taylor lost it and said Emily can't be this stupid and must be trying to hurt her for some reason. She began to get emotional and said that her wedding was stolen and she doesn't want to hear anything about my mom being happy or having a wedding. I gave her a hug and tried to calm her down. She told me to make Emily leave, and I said that didn't seem fair as it was probably a mistake. Emily said she said not to talk about the wedding, and she didn't realize she couldn't even talk about the dogs. Taylor asked if I was really not going to do anything, and I said I didn't feel right kicking Emily out. Emily left on her own, but Taylor ended up in tears and was angry with me. Not the a-hole. Your wife is over-exaggerating here. I can sort of understand the wedding drama, but asking you to kick out the last family member you have is cruel and disrespectful. P.S. What the duck is wrong with your mom? Not the a-hole. It sounds like your wife hasn't healed from her wedding experience, and it is still very much hurting. That being said, Emily did nothing wrong. She respected both of your boundaries and did nothing to intentionally hurt anyone. I can understand why your wife would be upset, but her reaction was out of line and put your relationship with Emily at risk. Not the a-hole, but your wife needs a do-over wedding moment. Having something spilled on her dress isn't the worst thing that can happen, but for her, her dream was broken, and she needs to experience her new dream. Ask her what her new dream is and start planning for it. Planning to experience her new dream can be extremely healing. Maybe she would like a trip somewhere in a white dress and a photographer to capture her on the beach or in a garden, whatever she wants. My brother was married to my best friend Elle for a decade. They had 2 children together, Milo, who was 8, and Piper, who was 7. Elle was diagnosed with cancer 3 years ago and passed away almost a year later. The kids were 5 and 6 years old. My brother met Danny after a few months and began dating her soon after. He and Elle's family had a big falling out because he told them he was hoping Danny would take their mom's place and that they would embrace her as their new mom, and wanted Elle's family to take a back seat so that could happen. They asked how he could erase Elle, and he told them she's dead, and he and the kids aren't, and he didn't want them holding a candle for a dead mother the rest of their lives, while they could have a living one. When they told him they loved the kids too much to disappear, he told them they could maybe arrange a phone call every Christmas. They decided to take him to court and were granted grandparents' visitation, as the judge saw it in the best interest of the kids, so they would maintain a relationship they already had with their deceased mother's family. My brother and I also had a strained relationship because he also tried to get me to erase Elle. On to Danny. She and my brother married a few months ago and hates Elle's family. She has accused them of caring more about themselves and Elle than the kids because they denied them a more whole family. She visibly shows annoyance when the kids mention Elle. She blamed me when the kids told her they weren't going to call her mom. She and my brother asked if they would, and the kids weren't interested. She was also unhappy they spent Mother's Day with Elle's family and not her, and even told the kids. Not too long ago, she confronted me and said my contact with Elle's family sends the kids the wrong message, and that I clearly have a favorite sister-in-law, which isn't fair. I told her Elle was my best friend since we were 4. Her family and I are close, and of course we remained close when she married my brother. Danny told me I need to stop seeing them or else. She told me she is tired of being second best and not being chosen by the kids. She said they don't even try to let her in. We argued, and I told her that her being jealous and controlling will always make her second best, unless she learns to embrace that she did come after Elle in our lives. She lost it, and my brother told me loyalty should be with him and Danny over Elle's family. He also told me I was insensitive with Danny. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. It's giving, I have moved on, and the fact that my kids won't also totally erase dead wife from their lives is pretty ducking inconvenient for me, to be honest. Like, who the actual duck says things like he wants the new girlfriend to replace their mother. He doesn't want the dead wife's family to see the kids, and he doesn't want his kids holding a candle for a dead mother when they could have a living one. Disgusting. Not the a-hole. Your brother and Danny are the a-holes. It is horrible that the children have lost their mother, but it is even worse that they try to erase her. That is not healthy for them. It should be considered psychological aggression to make them give up the memory of their mother like that and love a stranger, because that is what Danny is. Plus, she seems like the evil stepmother forcing them to love her. She would do better if she tried to be more like a friend or an aunt. By the way, by Danny's behavior, if she gets to have her own children, It will be the end of your nieces and nephews. So very much not the a-hole. Danny isn't the biggest a-hole here, though. Your brother is. All he and Danny are doing is guaranteeing that as soon as the kids are old enough to move out, they'll never see them again. I also want to add that in terms of a-holeness here, it's not actually relevant that Elle was your best friend and that you're still close to her family. They're trying to erase the kids' mother. They'd be the a-holes even if you'd never liked Elle in the first place. My husband, 27 male, has an account with his mother with a few thousand in it for emergencies. She lives a few states away and wants us to be able to fly to her in case something happens to her. A while back, my husband lost his job, and we went through our savings and asked for a small loan to get us through the 2 weeks until he started his new job. She allowed us to borrow some money, and we paid it back fairly quickly with 5% interest. 2 days after she allowed us to borrow the money, I got a call from my father-in-law, her ex-husband, ripping into us for stealing her money and taking advantage of having that account with her that are for emergency purposes. I was very upset and sent him text message exchanges between mother-in-law and my husband. Then I texted my mother-in-law the screenshots in a group chat with her boyfriend and let her know that we didn't appreciate the exaggerated story she told my husband's dad about us stealing from her, and let her know that when he comes to visit her, my husband will be closing that account. Since then, I've made a point to record our conversations in case anything like that happens again. I have a recording where she bought our kids a zoo membership as a gift from Grandma, and then 2 months later she called asking when we were going to pay her back and that she needed it ASAP. I responded with letting her know that she said it was a gift, and that a gift implies that no repayment is expected. She said, "I never said that. Why are you lying? I want my money." So I sent her the recording where she said it was a gift. She went off, stating I violated her privacy and that she's my elder and I need to respect her. Am I really the a-hole for recording our conversations? Not the a-hole. No more phone calls. It all goes through text. She has shown you she's a liar and can't be trusted. You started recording her because she has proven herself untrustworthy. Don't accept any more gifts from her. Make it clear she is not authorized to buy anything on your behalf. She is upset because she was called out. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. She has already demonstrated that she will lie about interactions with you. You're smart to record conversations to CYA. Make sure your state permits recording conversations, as it's a crime in some states. If it's a crime in your state, simply tell her at the beginning of every conversation, "This conversation is being recorded, and you're nice and legal." At the end of April 2021, I found out my wife of almost 11 years had been having an affair with a man that she works with. She told me she didn't know why she had done it, as she wasn't attracted to him and didn't have feelings for him at all. She just did it for the attention. I forgave her almost immediately, as I truly felt she was the love of my life and my soulmate. 2 weeks after I found out about the affair, she admitted to me that she had been falling out of love with me for a few months, but didn't know why and didn't think there was anything that could be done to bring her feelings back for me, so she asked for a divorce. Over the next few months, I lost 30 pounds due to anxiety and depression and lack of sleep. My wife started dating the man she cheated on me with and promptly informed our 4 young kids about her relationship. I asked her not to talk about her boyfriend in front of our kids yet, since I didn't feel it was appropriate this early into our divorce process, and it was clear that my 10 and 11-year-old children were uncomfortable with the situation. My wife even tried to force our kids to FaceTime with her new boyfriend a month ago, and it made my oldest son so uncomfortable that he hid under his bed sheets. I asked her not to expose the kids to him anymore for at least 4 to 6 months, and that she can enjoy her time with him, but to leave the kids out of it. This week was our youngest son's 6th birthday, and I had reluctantly asked if she wanted to get together as a family to celebrate it, as it was my custodial night with the kids, and I wanted to be nice. We had agreed to meet up and to keep things civil. The night before the party, my wife FaceTimed my kids while she was at her new boyfriend's house, which made me sick to my stomach and made my kids visibly uncomfortable. So after the call, I texted her and told her I didn't think it was a good idea to get together for the party anymore, because of how anxious I knew I would be around her, and I didn't want to say or do anything in front of our kids that I might regret. She was very upset about this, because she wanted to be able to see our son on his birthday, to which I responded by telling her divorce sucks, and if you wanted to see and speak to our kids every day, that she shouldn't have cheated and asked to end the marriage. I also informed her that I do not want her calling our kids on their days with me anymore, as it's my court-appointed time, and since my son's birthday fell on my night, this means I didn't want her to call him. I said if our son asked to call her, I would let him, but he never did. She tried to get her attorney involved, but he told her there's really nothing legally wrong with my request, and not much he could do. Needless to say, she didn't get to talk to him or see him on his birthday because of her actions. Am I the a-hole in this situation? Not the a-hole. You didn't have to offer her any time with your son on his birthday if it's a day he was in your custody. You did so to be generous. You have asked her previously to be discreet about her new relationship around the kids you share, and she has flouted that over and over. I'm pleased her attorney saw sense that there wasn't anything wrong with what you said or did. You actually seem to be putting your kids' feelings first, while she seems keen to move on and pretend everything is okay. Keep doing as you are. Everyone sucks here. Your wife more, but still. She cheated. She's bringing her new boyfriend around the kids in a way that makes them uncomfortable. She's an a-hole. But you suck too. Your kids are not a weapon to teach her a lesson. Does she have a legal right to talk to her son on his birthday? No. But come on. She's a mother wanting to wish her child a happy birthday. You could put stipulations around it like you'll be monitoring the call and will end it if she involves the boyfriend, sure. Cutting her off from her children completely when they're with you is really about punishing her. It does your children no good to be refused contact with their mother when they're with you. You can prevent a call involving her boyfriend when they're with you, but they're still going to have that when they're with her. So what are you accomplishing? As a child of divorce, it did me no good to see the animosity between my parents. The kids are stuck in the middle, and they're the ones being hurt.